Hello and welcome to Playcard Environmental Education Center's Forever Wild, the television show dedicated to environmental education in your Horry County schools. Today we're going to be taking a look at Playcard's Beaver Pond Swamp. We're going to be exploring the beaver pond habitat in this beautiful warm winter weather. It's abnormally warm right now. It's about 15 degrees above our normal average this time of year. It's roughly the middle of January right now, and we have a weather front starting to move into our area right now. It is just absolutely wonderful weather to observe wildlife. Right here is Buster Beaver. He's going to wish you welcome to Playcard. Glad you could make it, everybody. Let's go see what the beaver pond has to offer. See you in a little bit. For those of y'all that teach about 3rd grade to 5th grade level especially, you're probably going to be wanting to know a lot about animal adaptations to be able to teach your children about animal adaptations. Well, this is Buster Beaver. He is from this area. As a matter of fact, he was trapped in a local pond. It wasn't Playcard's pond because our beavers are protected. But the trapper brought him to us, and he was stuffed and preserved by a man called a taxidermist. Well, Buster has got a lot of adaptations for survival. The beaver themselves are very, very much aquatic mammals, meaning they live in the water and around water about all the time. And what Buster's unique characteristics are he has many evolutionary techniques for survival. And as we start at the tip of his nose, as a matter of fact, that's one of his evolutionary traits that helps him. He has little valves inside his nostrils. And if you were a beaver, you would have one inside of yours that you could close off when you go underwater to be able to seal off all the air passages he has for pulling in lots of oxygen into his body here. Of course, they do breathe air like all mammals. They close their valves when they dive. Also, as you look right here, he's got orange teeth. I'm going to lean him up a little bit so the camera can see. He's got orange teeth on the outside. This is a real hard enamel-like substance. In a little while, we're going to show you a skull and a little chewed stump where he's chewed it off. These guys here are like walking chainsaws, because they can chew through stumps about this size in under about 10 minutes, okay? And they could cut a tree down about this big around in under about 10 minutes. That's about an 8 to 10 inch diameter tree. So they're like walking chainsaws. So there's this big, hard 4 front incisors that grow throughout their entire life cycle. They're what's called immortal teeth, which means they keep growing sometimes even after death. About 2 or 3 hours after this animal was killed, these teeth were still adding minerals and growing. It's kind of neat. As they chew, they always grow. As you come back a little further on the head, you got these eyes. Now these eyes are basically representations of the real thing. They're little marbles made up to look like their natural eyes. But if you had a real beaver out here, what you would see is you would see a big eye, because they need to be able to see around in the dark at night, so they have a very large eye. And they have a large pupil that can dilate very, very wide, so they can pull in a lot of light. Has a flap over the outside of the eye that's clear called a nictitating membrane. If you were a beaver, you would have 2 eyelids. One eyelid would come down in front, and basically you'd be able to see underwater pretty well, and then protect your eye underwater, and then it would, when you came out of the water, it would roll back up so you could see better through the air. So that's called a nictitating membrane. As you move back, he has short ears. The reason why he has such short ears, but they're still evident, he can still move them around directionally, is because he needs these things to be small, because a lot of times he's going to be dragging and carrying wood all through our pond. He doesn't want to have a great big ear sitting out here dragging him through the water. It'd be hard to swim with these ears lagging along behind him like a rabbit would have or something. And he doesn't want thick branches and things knocking him off. So basically he has short ears for swimming. All right, let's come on down here to his claws. As you can see, this claw right here, he's got very large claws. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Large adaptive claws for survival. He uses these to grasp on the branches with, as you see Buster's doing here, and he will chew these branches off, and he will just cut them off at an angle, similar to what you see there with the tree stump. If you see an angular cut stick or log, you can bet you can see signs of beaver evidence around a pond. Another thing, let's go on down here. You notice these legs are short. If he had real long legs, it'd be hard for him to swim everywhere because the legs would drag there again. He needs short legs, can pull them up to his body. And when he swims with these huge back web feet here, come on down the body, you see the giant web paws. Can you see that with the camera right there? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back claws with webbing right between the toes. And as you know, any animal that has webbed feet, generally speaking, has an adaptation for survival of living in a water habitat, in an aquatic world. There's also an extra claw right here that we will show you here in just a little bit on the camera that is called the preening claw. And what they do with that claw is it's split on the end, like a fingernail. If you had a preening claw, your pinky would have a split in the middle of it that you could use like a comb. Well, this beaver does that too. He's got a little split in the end of this claw. He pulls it up and he scratches through his fur like that, and he combs out his fur and keeps it nice and preened. So they're very clean animals, okay, very clean. Super heavy, dense fur, doesn't allow a lot of water penetration into it because it has an oil substance covering it. And what he'll do is he'll reach back here behind him, right beside his tail end, and he has what's called a castor gland. The scientific name of this animal is called Castor canadensis. The castor gland is, it secretes a substance called castor castoria, which means, I guess it means oily stinky in some other language. I don't really know what it means, but when he gets that castor substance out, it's kind of a real pungent smell to it. He rubs it through his fur with that preening back claw. That makes the animal buoyant, waterproof, so they float very high in the water when you see them, and they zoom, 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 zoom. They swim around everywhere when they're living throughout their life cycle. Now, as you look back here, this is probably the most fantastic adaptation of many of the animals that you'll see in North America. It's his specialized tail. And a lot of people of my generation that looked and they saw a lot of old cartoons and stuff that showed the beavers paddling each other and slapping other critters with the tail and all that. They really don't do that. What this is this scale-covered flat tail is adapted to act like a rudder does on a boat or a ship. So when a rudder, as you know, on a ship is facing this way, vertically, and as it turns, it allows the ship to go back and forth. Well, this is a flat one. All it does is turn it one way to go to the right and turn it the other way to go to the left. Okay, so that's basically a big paddle-like, it's not really a swimming adaptation where it goes up and down and swims forward. It's just a rudder. Also, it's used to stand up on. When they're chewing on sticks on land, they'll sit back on it, and they'll make it like a prop. And they'll sit up there, and they'll chew on their stick, and they'll just go back in the water. The third thing it has allowed it to do is it allows it to be able to push mud up onto their dams. And in just a second, we're going to go explore a beaver dam and show you how that is done. The fourth thing we have here with his tail is it is a major area for him to store fat for survival through the winter. So that's just a few of our habitat adaptations that the beaver have for survival. Remember, it is Castor canadensis. It is one of the top 10 smelliest animals on the planet because of that castor gland. And let's go see and explore the world, the wild, wet, warm, wonderful world of the winter wetlands at Playcard that the beaver has created for us. All right. Now at Playcard, there used to be a very small little bitty creek that you could just about jump across about 20 years ago. And we're sitting on what used to be the forest. And what these animals do when they come into a habitat, what the beaver does, is they will come in and they will start making a dam. And we're now standing on top of the beaver dam. Our beaver dam at Playcard is one of the longest beaver dams that I personally have ever seen. This beaver dam extends approximately 300 feet, a good 100 yards, all the way across this swamp right here. Just about 100 meters from that side to that side. And over there, he built it to the edge of the road bank. That's the bank where the Highway 19 is that goes past our educational center here up near Loris. Now, as you can see here, we still got Buster here. We're thinking about his adaptations. His tail's big and flat. He's able to put that tail in the bottom and put his paws up like a bulldozer. And what they'll do, after they take a few sticks and kind of stick it here where this narrow area was where the water came through, they'll push up like a bulldozer all of this mud to seal in the cracks of the dam. And as you can see here now, this dam is so old, like I said, it's about 20 years old now. It's so old that the majority of this dam is now mud. Everything that was sticks years ago pretty much rotted off. But to this day, if there's a leak in this dam, he'll come by and he'll stuff logs in that leak. And there's evidence of another animal that is fed on this log previously right here that he shoved in the dam. You can see where the beavers chopped that off in a couple of spots and knocked this piece of wood over and used it to kind of flow into the dam. This evidence here That oblong-shaped hole is evidence of a pileated woodpecker. Well, pileated woodpeckers is one of those creatures that love beaver dams. When beavers build their dams in areas, typically they create habitat for a lot more wildlife. They're one of the only creatures on Earth, besides humans, that can alter their habitat by their building techniques. Okay? So we and the beaver have a lot of responsibilities when we do that. Now, the beaver, typically, when he builds his dams, he creates habitat for a lot more wildlife. Typically, when humans come in and develop, we decrease the populations of wildlife in a typical situation. So we have a lot to learn from Mr. Beaver right here about wildlife conservation. But you see these big chewed up pieces of wood here? That is one bite of a beaver. One nibble from a beaver pulled out that much wood. How much wood do you think you'd be able to bite in one bite out of a good old hardwood tree? I mean, that's some hard wood right there. I mean, you might chew your whole life and not get through that whole tree. This guys right here are like walking chainsaws. They cut through a tree this big around in about, gosh, I'd say a couple of hours. They could work this whole tree down. It doesn't take them long. They're very efficient in what they do. Now look at here. This is what we were going to explain earlier. What beavers have, the adaptation for survival that they have, is what they call a bipartite tooth, which means a tooth made out of two different materials. The front part of the tooth is what's called enamel. It's the same thing that covers you and I teeth. It's a real hard substance, very resistant to breaking. So that wears very slowly. The back part of the tooth, like many herbivores or plant-eating mammals have, is what's called dentine. It's like it's spelled similar to the chewing gum, but it's D-E-N-T-I-N. Dentin, actually, is what some people call it, but I call it dentine. That's the way we were taught to say it when I went to wildlife biology school. The reason why dentine is important is because it wears very quickly. And as you can zoom in on that, if you can get a really tight shot on that, you can see that it forms a chisel. Backside wears away fast. The front side, the enamel, wears away slowly. And it creates that chisel that the incisors can chew through just about anything they want, any piece of wood out there. They love hardwood, deciduous trees, trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime, hardwood as opposed to softwood species like pines and evergreens. They will eat pines and evergreens, but they don't prefer them. What they do with the hardwoods is they'll come in and they'll girdle the tree. They'll go around and cut all the bark back to start with. And they'll kind of let the sap bleed out from inside the tree, and sometimes it kills the tree. In this case, it did not kill the tree because they're still budding on this tree. This is a white oak here along our swamp. And if you look here, they'll eventually start working it in, and they will cut all the way through this, let the tree fall down, and then they will go through, and the only living material that they eat off of the tree is the matter right up under the bark layer. Okay, there's a green layer right up under the bark layer. We're going to show you on a couple of the top limbs. The more tender shoots are at the top of the tree, so they cut down the bottom of the tree, the harder part of the tree, to get to those tender shoots. Let's check out and see what they eat over here on this other tree from the top. If you look right here, we have got an area of bark here that is being removed off of this tree. If you look to the very end here, you notice it's cut off by a beaver because it's cut at a 45-degree angle. That is roughly a 45-degree angle. Halfway between 90 is 45 degrees. Okay, so if you want to get your geometry into it, that's a little geometry right there. What the beaver's after on these limbs, and he's cut this one off and drug it out in the middle of the swamp to his cache, they're after this green material right up underneath the surface of the bark. And if we can pull it back here, we'll show you. I don't have, what you need is a little scraping type tool. A lot of times I will use a scraper or some kind of other device to be able to show the kids. I don't have it in my pocket today. I emptied the pockets before we did this episode. Look at here. If you can dig that back, you'll start to see more and more green growth. And that's what the beaver is after. That layer right underneath the bark is all basically the nutrition in there. You can already start to see the green. You see when we scrape that, the green material? Green means life in a plant. So you've got living tissue, even in the middle of the wintertime, on this tree right there. That green layer is where the nutrition is, where the vitamins and minerals are for the animal to eat. That's what he's after. Strips the bark, leaves the rest. Kind of cool. Might eat a leaf or two even during the growing season. Now this is the best way to see Playcard swamp. And if you come out here on a camp or an overnight, or possibly even a day trip if the group is small enough, you can come kayaking with us in our swamp. It's a wonderful way to learn about beaver ecology, as well as the ecology of swamps and wetlands in the area, and learn all about the different kind of habitats out here and everything. And it's just a whole lot of fun, to tell you the truth, to go kayaking. This is the way to go. Thousands of years Native Americans traveled by kayak and canoe, and we're doing something that's in our ancestral blood here by doing this. If you'll listen, you can hear tons of wildlife sounds, lots of birds, lots of different creatures, because sound carries across water. It is not absorbed by the water like it is on land, objects on land, so the sound waves go straight across the water uninhibited, except for when it hits an occasional tree out here. Now let's go exploring our swamp. We're going right down the main channel where the old creek channel used to be. If I put my paddle down, it's about, wow, it's over the paddle. So it's probably 8.5 to 9 feet deep here, right in the middle. So that's pretty deep. If we go right there where the lily pads are, lily pads are only growing about 4 feet of water plus, so it's 9 feet here, 4 feet there. Means you got a really high bank on both sides of us underwater. And most of your fish in the cold months will come into this hole. But as of now, they'll be underneath those leaves foraging, because it's warm in the winter. Warm, wet, wild, it's hard winter. We're heading right now down the creek channel to the area that the beavers live in during the middle of the day, the Beaver Lodge. So let's see what kind of house they build. Hey everybody, this brings us to a part of our swamp that we're not so proud of, but it's a very necessary thing to teach people, is not to pollute. People, this is an environmental education center. And if lazy people will come down and they will throw out trash at an environmental education center, imagine what they're going to do everywhere else. I mean, this is a place that's supposed to represent an example of a clean environment. So here we have bad stuff going on right here. We've got lazy people going by the road throwing trash out, whole trash bags of stuff in our swamp. Absolutely, probably the worst thing I've ever seen in environmental, as far as the environment, just people being lazy. All it takes is 2 more minutes. There's a recycling facility down the road. Go recycle your stuff. It takes 2 minutes, people. It's 2 minutes worth of your life, not to kill wildlife and to take care of our environment. Now, these plastic bags can be eaten by different birds that can kill them. Lots of things can happen that are negative to our environment by putting pollution into it just like that. So please be nice to the environment. Recycle instead of being trashy like this. Okay, this is the Beaver Lodge, and you can see how it's constructed by all kinds of sticks and pieces of wood. There's that limb that we saw a while ago that was chewed on. That's a piece of that limb. He brought it out to his lodge and started construction on it. And if you'll reach up under the water, a lot of times you'll find green leaves. And what they do is they stash green leaves under the water, so if this pond freezes over, they can come out and grab them a little snack and bring it back in. It's like the little beaver refrigerator. It's called a cache, a little bunch of green limbs and sticks underwater around their lodge. Now, this thing is built by starting with a mud pile and piling sticks on top of that, and more sticks and more sticks and more sticks. As you can see, he's gone up there and ramped up mud all up the side of it to seal in the spaces in the sticks so it can be basically watertight. Now, the top doesn't have any mud stuck in it, so there's a chamber of sticks in the middle that lets air go through. And in the cold winter months, when it's really cold, not like it is today when it's warm, you can actually see steam rising out of the top of that beaver lodge, where their breath from all the beaver in there are coming through the top of the lodge. Typically, we have 6 to 7 members in a lodge, an adult male or adult female, a mama and a daddy, and then you've got their babies. You've got their first-year offspring. They're called kits, K-I-T-S, and that's, there could be 2 to 6 of those in a litter. And then you'll have your second-year offspring, kits, 2 to 6 of those. So you can have as many as 12 or 13 beaver in this lodge, or maybe even a couple of more. But the average number of beaver in a lodge is usually around 6 or 7 individuals. We have 11 beaver lodges in Playcard Swamp, and that means we have at least between 55 and 75 beaver on our property. And it's just a little 200-acre plot out here in the middle of the country. That's a lot of beaver on a small area. Look right here where he's been chewing. He's been chewing on all these logs. You see those poof prints? You can even smell this thing if you get downwind. You can smell the castor glands of the beaver. So remember, they chew their way through. They build a pile of sticks, chew their way through it, make a hole here. Usually they have at least 2 entrance ways or exit ways to their lodge. In case a predator can come in, they can escape. But sometimes they have as many as 4 entrance ways into their lodge. And their entrance ways will be somewhere underwater. And I don't think we're going to be able to see them today, but we're going to take a look for them anyway. Let's go look around out here. Beavers also eat lily pads and the roots of the lily pad. You're going to see a lot of evidence from a lot of different beaver activities around this lodge, because this is their center of activity here in the pond. Beaver ponds go through stages of natural succession just like anywhere else, and the different stages of natural succession they go through include a island formation, what's called I call it a gunk island formation, for lack of a better term for it. It's probably a scientific term out there. But what happens is all these dying and decaying bits of plant and a little bit of animal matter mixed into that starts floating up off the bottom, and it creates this gas is emitted off the bottom of it, and it keeps it floating. And on top of that, in the summertime, you'll see living little things growing on it. I've even seen little small trees and shrubs growing on this. And in the wintertime, typically, it goes to the bottom. But this winter, it's been so warm, it's still right on top of the water, which is anomaly, something that's not normal for our winter. As you can see, you push on that, it turns into a bog-like state. Now, over a period of relatively 50 to 100 years, you would probably have these things come together into a big, thick bog-like mat. The trees would die off, and then eventually you would have a big, wide open meadow where you have nothing but very rich organic soils from the act of all the decomposition and all the years of these mats getting together and clogging up. Look at all that black, rich organic matter that's good food for the plants right there that it has in it. So Native Americans would hardly ever trap beaver. If you trap an animal and kill an animal, you can only eat it once. But if you use that animal's benefits, then you can, it's like the old saying, you can only kill the cow once and eat the steak. Or you can milk the cow and you'll have food for a long, long time. So what Native Americans would do, they would let the beavers open up the water for them, create their fishing and hunting grounds, and then when the beaver moved on, they would plant their crops in that area because it was thick, rich, organic soils that would allow their crops to grow better. So they actually used the beaver to their advantage, as opposed to today when we think beavers are somewhat of a nuisance in a lot of cases instead of a positive thing. But they are very much a positive force in nature, not a negative one. Let's go on and see some more habitat components that beavers do. All right, what we've got here is a major habitat component in wetlands. Matter of fact, in beaver ponds, there's been a study done in South Carolina that says there's 4 times more wood ducks living in a beaver pond as opposed to an area that does not have a beaver pond along a creek or a stream. Wood ducks were almost extinct at one time in this country, and they're coming back in large number due to conservation efforts of hunters and outdoorsmen all around the country donating their funds through some of their licenses and whatnot to help save the wood duck. This particular wood duck box was put up by the Scouts of America, I believe, way back when, or it was the South Carolina, working with the South Carolina Waterfowl Association. As you can see, it's got a squirrel deflector in case some animals come up here, or a snake deflector, and a snake swims up here, cannot swim, get around this and get in the wood duck box and eat the wood duck babies. When we get up to the center, we'll do a little short segment on what the wood duck look like. Basically, it's just got a lid on it that you can look down into a nest box count. Don't touch the eggs, or the female won't come back to them, but count the eggs in there and see how many wood ducks are going to reproduce for the next year. So you kind of get a relative abundance study by doing that. So that's also another good senior project. We need somebody to rebuild our wood duck boxes and help monitor it for us. So if anybody's out there interested in that in the county, come on out. It'll be a good senior project or Boy Scout or Girl Scout project for us. Now, here we have this much species of the month. Here we have the male and the female wood duck, okay? It's the hen and the drake. And basically, wood ducks are probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful ducks in all of our swamps. These 2 ducks are on display inside our nature center for anybody else who'd like to come out and play card and see what we have in our nature center. And if you'll look here, the hen here has got very much a drab color to her. She's kind of brown on the backside, buff white on her belly right there, and her little sharp claws are sticking out the side. And the drake here, the male wood duck, the boy wood duck, has got a really super bright green head, bright red eyes, and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful yellow around the sides of his ears there, sides of his nose hole. If you look here, he's got bright yellow legs with black webbing between them. Just a beautiful example of one of the most ornate species of any bird that we have in South Carolina. Now, beavers increase these populations by 4-fold to 8-fold in an area. So if you only have one wood duck, say, in a creek nesting in an area, you may have 4 to 8 wood ducks in a little pond area about the same size as a little creek bank that it would normally be using. There's some real special characteristics, too, about these animals. They can fly at about 45 miles an hour, pull their wings in tightly, and fit inside this hole full speed now, like a dart coming in. They'll fly in and they'll go whoop, and they'll fly into that hole right there. And you see this box is very narrow from front to back. It's very narrow. It's only about 1 foot from front to back. And they can stop at 45 miles an hour. 45 miles an hour here, 0 miles an hour here, without hitting the back of that wood duck box. That is amazing. Somebody tell me about the physics of that, because that doesn't make any sense to me. As long as I've been studying these different things, that is one of the most amazing phenomena in nature. How can a wood duck fly into a cavity full speed without knocking yourself silly? And they got hollow bones, little bitty thin skulls, and they don't break their brain on anything in there. So it seems like they could. All right, I'm going to open the side of the wood duck box, lean it back so you can see inside it. As you can see, the female, you can see her back wings, her secondaries, and her bright colors in there. I guess you can see that on film there. Can you zoom into it? You got me? Okay. You see the white secondaries back here? And it's got wood shavings in the bottom, kind of like hamster wood duck wood shavings down in the bottom. That's just a dump nesting material for her to come in and drop her eggs into when she's during the nesting season. All right, these things are amazing creatures. If you're ever around a creek or a pond or a river, and you hear kind of an explosion from the water, boom, you hear a going off in the distance, kind of a whistling noise, you can bet that you've probably heard the sounds of a wood duck. As a matter of fact, on our website, if we can find the sounds of the wood duck, we're going to try and link those into you so you can click on it and be able to hear these guys for yourself if you'll go to our website, on the Forever Wild website, and see that. All right, wood ducks, a fantastically adapted organism to live in beaver ponds, one that used to be on the threatened species list and now has come back due to good conservation measures from lots of South Carolinians, including the South Carolina Waterfowl Association, who donated this wood duck box display here to Playcard. All right, everybody, you guys have a good one out there, and we'll see you on next month's episode of Forever Wild. Thank you for watching Forever Wild, the program dedicated to environmental education in the Horry County schools. Everybody out there needs to go out and enjoy this beautiful blessing of this warm winter weather that we've had lately. It's absolutely gorgeous. And all you teachers out there, take a chance. Bring your kids outside. Explore the teachable moment. A lot of the times, we don't even know what kind of teachable moments we're going to have until we go outside. So you need to go out in your backyards, explore your natural areas, and even your natural areas of your school ground, to let your students experience the beauty and the wonder that is the science of nature. So on behalf of Playcard Environmental Education Center, we need, oh, you know what? I forgot to ask. We are right now mostly full for the spring semester at Playcard for our field trips, but we still need a few dates, and we have a few still open. If anybody out there would like to sign up, please look at the calendar. We will have a link at the bottom of this screen right now, how you get to our website, and look about signing up for a spring field trip. It's beautiful weather. Even the winter has just been absolutely gorgeous to come out for field trips. All the kids that have been here so far this winter have just loved the dickens out of it because it is so nice. It is as pretty as it is in April, and here it is in the middle of January. It's amazing at Playcard. So on behalf of Playcard Environmental Education Center, my name is Ben Rokill Abercrombie. Have a good one. Stay forever wild.
Oh.